Now, is there a way of combining those elements even within, say, you're doing a deadlift? Is a deadlift just catabolic essentially, or is there a way of combining that? And the reason I ask, Elliott, is I've done a lot of practice and teaching in Tai Chi, and so when you're doing a martial art move, there's this strength and this leads just straight into another one of my questions: a balance between yin and yang energies, and
Right.
and how do you, and there's a fullness when you have that balance. How do you incorporate that into actual strength training, other than just the breaking down and building up of certain hormones?
It's funny that you mentioned yin and yang because it's like parasympathetic, sympathetic, anabolic, catabolic, night, day, yin, up,
Mm-hmm.
down, left, right, female, male, hot, cold. This contrast, this duality seems to be present in all that we do. One of the things that in my experience and studies have revealed to me is that although they seem like separate things, it's really one thing manifesting it or dancing with itself.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see? It's they're two sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other. The thing is that like in martial arts, there were times when they did internal martial arts. My brother is still very heavily invested, and he always talks about the internal arts. And in the internal arts, you're doing things like qigong, tai chi. It's a lot of breathing, it's a lot of slow movement, it's a lot of concentration, but it's also very parasympathetic. The way it's stimulating the parasympathetic branch. And then you've got the external martial arts, and that's like kung fu, like when you're grabbing and punching and pulling and twisting and throwing. And a well-balanced practitioner would be one that makes sure that it does its internal, like my brother would typically do his internal arts early in the day, and then his external arts in the evening when he got home from work.
Mm.
I'm not so sure about doing it at the same time, at the same exercise, because it's almost like a seesaw. It's like when you stimulate one, it has the complete opposite effect with the other. You see, it's almost like you can't have the sun and the moon up at the same time. When the sun goes up, we're generally going to be stimulating catabolic breakdown sympathetic hormones just naturally based on the circadian rhythms. But then, without us having to do anything at all, as the sun drops and the moon emerges, we start becoming more yin. We become more parasympathetic. We become more anabolic.
Mm-hmm. So you would suggest trying to blend both the yin and yang into, say, a deadlift or a bench press, but yet using your strength training as a yang type energy, and then balancing that with your anabolic energy techniques to help release some of that tension or that energy.
It's interesting because now that you're saying this, it's like there are macro examples of this, but then there are so many micro examples of this. So you're never getting away from it. I mean, every time you exhale, right? So you're getting ready to do a bench press. Every time you do this, it's a yin behavior.
Mm-hmm.
It's parasympathetic stimulating. We're not really getting away from it ever. The dance is always going on. Every time your heart beats, it's systole, diastole, systole, diastole. I mean, it's yin, right? Absorbing, pulling in, fullness, yang, aggression, contraction, pressing out, reaching out. So it's like it's an interesting question, and we can play games with it all day long. But I think that there's an attitude also that we end up choosing, and even the attitude. I'm totally thinking now. I don't have an answer, but even the attitude I found can be a balance of the two. I recently stopped listening to music when I train. And most of the time while I'm training, I'm in a very calm, relaxed place. When I used to compete in strongman, I typically just sit. Other guys are like slapping each other in the face and punching each other, going nuts before their set. And I knew they were burning themselves out, so I used to just laugh at them. But I would typically just sit. Maybe I'd have my wife with me or some of my children, and then I'd get up, and it would simply just take one sound. And then I'm ready to go. And then I'm breathing deep, and I go and I perform my set. I don't have to be so catabolic, so all the time. I don't know. You know what the answer is? Yes, no.
Yes, no, a balance, yin and yang. And it reminds me too, Elliot. This was maybe 6 or 7 years ago. I was reading a study, and it was looking at music and the effects that music has on performance and strength. And it was saying that the music, the type of music that was most effective for increasing strength output was actually classical music, and that helped. I don't remember the study specifically, the year or whatever, but I just remember that, just wedging that in my mind, thinking, okay, there's a component to softness and increasing strength within softness.
One of the things that we like to do, and this is kind of a Western idea. I mean, we've been able to achieve what we have in the West as far as technology is concerned because of our ability to keep chunking things down. We get smaller and smaller, micro, nanotechnology. I mean, we're getting smaller. And we do that by dividing. And it's gotten us to where we are, but it's also, if you study quantum physics and stuff, it gets you to a point where you can't divide any further, and you start to realize that it just keeps doing this. It keeps splitting. So even the question proceeds from a place of, well, which one?
Right.
And I don't think we can ever, which, I just described with regard to quantum physics, which is like the most expansive form of science at this particular point, where they can't figure it out, really is we don't know yet, both.